the goodbye, David opened his eyes slowly. The room was dark, silent, too silent. He reached out beside him, but the bed was empty. Cold, his wife's Sail was not there. He sat up. Sail. He called. No answer. David stood and walked toward the hallway. Something felt wrong. The air was heavy. The house too quiet. Then he saw it. On the kitchen table, a note, just one line, written in Sail's handwriting. Take care of him. I had no choice. David's heart stopped for a moment. His hands began to shake. What does this mean? He whispered, and then he heard a sound. A small cry, soft and strange. He turned around. There in a basket on the couch lay a baby. Not just any baby, his baby. But the baby didn't look fully human. Its skin was pale, with a light blue glow. Its eyes were large and silver, shining with tiny moving symbols inside symbols David had never seen before. He stepped closer, unsure. Sail, what did you do? He said to himself. He picked up the child. The baby looked at him and blinked. The glowing symbols in its eyes spun slowly, then stopped. David's mind was racing. Sail was gone. No goodbye. No warning, no and now. His wife was not human. She was from another planet Alira, a peaceful alien race. They met 3 years ago on a space research mission, fell in love. Married in secret. She always told him, if they find out, they'll take me away. David didn't ask who they were. He didn't want to know. Now he wished he had. The baby touched David's chest and smiled. A strange warmth filled David's heart. It felt real, deep, strong, but also unfamiliar. He sat down, holding the child carefully. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The baby looked at them and they stopped flickering. David froze. Okay, he said slowly. You're special. He walked to the small storage box Sail kept locked in her room, silver cube with no buttons. It only opened with her handprint. He tried touching it. Nothing. Then he gently placed the baby's hand on it. Click, the box opened. Inside were papers, small tech devices, and a tiny silver disc glowing faintly. He picked it up. A message appeared. In the air above Sal's face, David, her voice said, shaking slightly. If you're seeing this, I'm gone. David's eyes filled with tears. He held the baby closer. I didn't leave you because I wanted to. I left because I had to. They found us. They know about him. David stared at the floating image. Who found us? He whispered. They'll come for the child, Sail continued. They'll pretend they're helping. Don't trust them. Then, her voice cracked. Please, protect him. He's not like others. He's important. The message ended. David sat there in silence. His whole life had changed in one night. Outside the window, a light passed in the sky, silent, fast. Too fast to be a plane. He didn't notice it. He was thinking of Sail, of how she looked at him when she said she loved him, of how she held his hand when their child was born. He didn't even know the child's name. He looked down. What do I call you? Softly. The baby blinked again, then opened its mouth and said, in a soft, musical voice, Alan. David's eyes widened. You? You can talk. The baby smiled. Suddenly, a sound came from outside, a low hum, a mechanical noise. David stood up quickly and ran to the window. Nothing. He opened the front door. Still nothing. But then, he saw it. Just for a moment, a shadow. Tall, thin, not human. It moved too fast to see clearly. But it was there. David shut the door and locked it. He looked at the baby. Alan looked back calmly, as if nothing was wrong. David whispered, They're already here, aren't they? The baby didn't answer. He held Alan close to his chest, feeling the tiny heartbeat. So small, yet something told him this child was more powerful than he could ever imagine. And now, David was alone. No plan, no help, just him. And an alien. Child. And the world didn't even know what was coming. Asterisk. David hadn't slept in 2 nights. The baby Alan never cried like normal babies. He didn't need milk. He didn't seem tired. He just stared. Stared at things too long. Watched the lights, watched the shadows. Watched David, and when Alan stared. Strange things happened. The TV would turn on without power. The fan would stop spinning and hang in the air. The walls would hum. David tried not to panic, but fear lived behind every breath. He kept the curtains closed, avoided the windows, and didn't answer calls. He still remembered the shadow Fee saw outside. They were looking for Alan. Sale had warned him. He had to keep the baby safe. One night, Kay sat on the couch, staring at the silver cube Sale had left. It still played her message if he touched it. He had watched it more than 10 times, looking for clues. For anything, nothing new. Just her voice, her face, and her final words. He's important. Protect him. David sighed. Protect him. From what a soft sound came from the floor. He looked down. Alan was sitting on the rug, one hand on David's old laptop. The screen was black. It hadn't worked in years. David walked over. Hey, that's junk. Don't. Before he could finish, the screen lit up, bright white. Glowing lines like circuits raced across the glass. Then, words appeared. Alien. Symbols. Lines, curves, spirals. The baby tilted his head and touched one of the symbols. Suddenly, the symbols turned into English. File unlocked. Project Catalyst. David stepped back, heart racing. What is this? The baby looked up at him and smiled. David sat down, eyes locked on the screen. A folder opened. Dozens of videos, documents, and maps. All labeled with Sale's name. All marked Class 7 Alien. Science. Some marked Classified. He opened the first video. Sale appeared again, but not like before. She was in a lab, wearing a white suit, speaking quickly. Subject 01. Catalyst program results show high instability. Half human, half human. Children exhibit unusual control over technology and thought patterns. David froze. Children. Plural. He hit pause. His hands were shaking. He looked at Alan again. The baby was watching him, calm. Too calm. Are you the only one? David asked quietly. Or are there others like you? Alan didn't answer. Just blinked slowly. David clicked another file. It was a report. Typed by Sale. The child shows signs of pre-language awareness. Telekinetic potential. He does not cry for food. He senses emotions, and he's learning at a speed far beyond normal. Illyrians. Or humans. David whispered, "You're not just smart, you're something new." That night, David placed Alan in his crib and walked to the kitchen. His mind was burning. He needed answers. Real answers. As he opened the fridge, the lights flickered again. He turned fast. No, not now. But the lights went out completely. Pitch black. Then, glowing light from the hallway. He ran back. The baby was floating, not just above the crib but spinning slowly. Eyes closed, glowing faintly, and symbols, dozens of them, spinning around him in the air. David's breath caught. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just watched. Then Alan opened his eyes. The floating stopped. The light vanished. The room returned to normal. David rushed forward, picked him up, and held him close. Alan was warm, soft, smiling as if nothing had happened. David sat on the floor, heart pounding. "This is impossible," he whispered. "You're not just a baby." The next morning, David packed bags. He had to move. Go off-grid, hide. He grabbed the files from the cube, the laptop, some food, and the child. He drove into the forest, far from any city. Found an old cabin from his uncle's past. Quiet, empty, safe. For now, that night, after Alan slept, David opened the laptop again. A new file had appeared. Incoming trace detected. He clicked it. A map appeared. A blinking red dot, something was tracking them, and it was getting closer. He turned the laptop off quickly and stared into the dark woods outside the window. Someone or something was coming. Later, David sat by the window with a flashlight. He whispered, "Who are you really, Alan?" Behind him, a small voice replied, "I am not alone." David dropped the flashlight. The baby had spoken again, clearly. Calmly, David turned. Alan sat up in the crib, looking at the stars, and then he pointed at the sky. David looked up. A light was moving, fast, silent, not a plane. Not a satellite. It was coming. The old cabin creaked in the night wind. David sat at the wooden table, his eyes fixed on the silver cube. It hadn't shown him everything, not yet, but he had a feeling it could. Alan was asleep in the next room. For now, at least, David whispered to himself, "Who were you, Sale? What did you hide from me?" He pressed the cube again. Nothing happened. He placed Ellen's hand on it. It glowed. A new file appeared on the laptop screen. Confidential Eliron Agent Sale 5X status. Rogue. David felt cold. Rogue? What did that mean? He clicked the file. A video began. Sale sat in a dark room, different from before. She wasn't wearing her lab coat. Her hair was messy. Her face was pale. She looked scared. "They lied to me," she said. "Everything they told us about the Catalyst project, it was false. We were not creating peace. We were building weapons." David leaned forward, shocked. The hybrids, our children, were not meant to live normal lives. They were designed to control ancient tech left behind by the first ones. Machines that can destroy planets or control minds. They planned to use the children as keys. David's breath caught. "You were part of this," Sale continued. "I tried to stop them, but once I became pregnant with Alan, I knew they would take him. Study him, use him. So I ran. I erased my records, hid my real identity. Married David, hoping they'd never find us." David sat back, heart pounding. Sale hadn't just been a scientist. She had been a spy, an insider. Someone who turned against her own kind. But why didn't she tell him? Why hide the truth? He opened another document. A profile name, Sale 5, X-Race. Illyrian status, mission assigned Earth objective. Locate and activate Catalyst DNA secondary. Mission, identify human-compatible subjects. Result, pregnant hybrid created. Mission status, failed. Agent gone rogue. David whispered, "Was I part of a mission?" The room felt colder. Was their love real? Or had he been just a test subject? He shook his head. "No, she loved me. I saw it in her eyes." But still, doubt crept in. Suddenly, a soft knock came from the door. Knock, not loud, not human. David grabbed the laser cutter from under the table, one of Sale's tools. He walked slowly to the door and peeked through the crack. No one. He waited. Nothing. Then a voice behind him. "She was one of us." David spun around, damning the weapon. But it wasn't a person. A hologram shimmered in the center of the room. A tall, silver figure, Illyrian, but older, sharper. Its voice was flat and emotionless. We tracked her. She betrayed the Ilarian Council. The child belongs to us. David stepped in front of the crib. He's not yours, he's mine. Her son, my son. The figure stared at him. She used you. You were a doorway. Nothing. More? David clenched his fists. You're wrong. She ran from you. She protected him. The figure tilted its head. Love makes you weak. Then the hologram vanished. That night, David couldn't sleep. He stared at Alan, peacefully dreaming. His silver eyes moved slightly under closed lids. Like he was watching something in his sleep. David whispered, "Did she love me? Or was I just part of her escape?" He wanted to believe the love was real, but the evidence said otherwise. The next morning, David walked outside. The forest was quiet, the sky clear, but something was wrong. The birds were gone. No wind, no sound. And then a noise. Low, buzzing like insects, but mechanical. He turned, Dan saw it. A drone, not human-made. Ilarian design. It hovered for a moment, then zipped away. They had found him. David returned to the cabin fast, heart racing. He opened the last locked folder in the cube's files. It required both his and Ellen's touch. Together, they unlocked it. Inside was one short message written by Sale herself. David, if you're reading this, I knew you'd survive. I never lied to you about the most important thing. I loved you from the first moment. But I had to lie about who I was. I had to hide the truth to keep him safe. Alan is not a weapon, but others will treat him like one. Protect him. Trust him. He will remember more than you think. And when the time comes, he will find me. David felt tears rise in his eyes. She had loved him. She had fought for their child. He looked at Alan, who was now awake and watching him as if he understood every word. David smiled weakly. Don't worry, Alan. I'll protect you, no matter what. But in the back of his mind, one question remained. If Alan can unlock ancient alien tech, what else can he do? The forest was quiet again, too quiet. David didn't trust the silence anymore. It felt like something was holding its breath. Waiting inside the old cabin, Alan sat by the fireplace, drawing lines in the dust with one glowing finger. The symbols didn't make sense to David, but they weren't random. They curved, looped, repeated like a language forming itself from memory. Memory that wasn't human. David checked the energy scanner Sale left behind. It blinked red once, then twice. Then it flatlined. Something was jamming the signal. He grabbed his pack and stuffed the cube, the laptop, and the remaining food inside. Then he knelt beside Alan. We're leaving, he whispered. Alan looked up, calm as always. To calm. Now, David added firmly. He didn't know where to go. But staying here was no longer safe. The sun had barely risen when David reached. The ridge, below, hidden between trees, was a black craft. Sleek, silent. No lights, no windows. It hadn't been there yesterday. David's heart raced. They're here. He turned back toward the cabin and froze. Someone was standing at the door, tall, thin, dressed in black armor that shimmered like glass. The figure tilted its head toward the forest dash, listening. David crouched low, holding Alan close. The figure walked slowly inside the cabin. Seconds later, a flash of white light lit up the sky. Then the cabin exploded into dust. No sound. No fire. Just gone. David ran. Branches cut his arms. Leaves whipped his face. But he didn't stop. He had one thought. Alan must survive. Behind him, something moved through the trees. Silent, fast, unnatural. Not a drone. Not a person. A hunter? They reached an abandoned bunker left from Earth's last war. Hidden underground, covered in vines and moss. David placed Alan inside and shut the heavy metal door. "Stay quiet," he whispered. "No matter what." Alan just blinked. David didn't. "Say goodbye." He turned and ran back out to draw them away. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a hero, but he was a father now, and that meant he had to be both. As David ran through the forest, he saw a flicker-like heat rising. Then a shadow stepped into his path. It didn't speak, it didn't breathe, but it moved fast. David raised his weapon and fired. Blue sparks hit the shadow but passed through like smoke. The creature didn't stop. It raised one hand and time slowed. David fell to the ground, eyes wide. The figure reached into his mind. He felt it, cold, searching. "Where is the catalyst?" A voice echoed in his head. David screamed. Suddenly, everything went black. Inside the bunker, Ellen's eyes opened wide. He stood up. Symbols glowed on his arms. The dust around him floated. He wasn't scared. He was remembering what he was. Outside, the shadow leaned over David's body. Too weak, no access. Scan failed. Then it turned toward the trees, but stopped. The ground was shaking. A light grew behind the trees, golden, pulsing, alive. Then it spoke. Not in words, but through everything. "You cannot take him." The trees bent. The sky turned, and the shadow screamed, not in pain, in fear. David woke up coughing. The forest was silent again, but the shadow was gone. And in the sky, he saw a shape forming bright and massive. A doorway. But it closed before he could understand it. He limped back to the bunker inside. Alan sat calmly, as if nothing had happened. David dropped to his knees. What are you?" Alan looked at him. Voice soft, awake. That night, David dreamed of Sail again. But she wasn't speaking, she was running. And behind her, in the stars, something enormous was moving. He woke with a chill. Alan was still watching him. David whispered, "They'll come again, won't they?" Alan nodded, then pointed at the cube. David touched it. A final file appeared. Last contact, Vorix. It had coordinates. A location off-planet. Sail's message spoke again, but this time, live. "David, if you hear this, there's still time. Go to Vorix. He knows how to hide Alan. He knows what's coming, and he knows the truth about me. The real truth." David stood slowly. He looked down at his son, the boy who could wake machines, stop shadows, and speak to stars. "We leave tonight." Alan stood, holding his hand. The child didn't speak, but deep inside, David. A single thought echoed. They're not just after the child. They're afraid of what he'll become. The stars looked different from here. Bigger, colder, quieter. David stared out the window of the stolen Elleran escape pod. He had never been this far from Earth before. Now, Earth felt like a dream, something from another life. A life where he had a job, a home, and a wife. Now he had only one thing. Alan, and Alan was asleep beside him, floating gently inside a glowing stasis cradle. The boy hadn't spoken since the forest. Not with words, but something had changed. David could feel it. Like the air around Alan was. Watching, waiting, the pod beeped. Approaching coordinates, docking in 10 seconds. David checked the nav screen. They were headed toward a moon gray, cracked, lifeless. Nothing lived here, at least. Nothing human, but Sail's message had been clear. Go to Vorix. The pod landed with a soft hiss. David stepped out slowly. His boots crunched against dry dust. No wind, no sound. Just strange rock formations and a giant, dead sky. A small structure stood ahead, half buried in the ground. Metallic, smooth, humming faintly. He carried Alan toward it. The door opened before he touched it, and from the darkness, a voice echoed, "You brought the child." David raised the laser cutter instinctively. "You, Vorax." The voice replied, calm and slow, "Weapons are useless here. I wanted you dead. You wouldn't have landed." David hesitated, then stepped inside. The chamber was round, glowing. Lines ran through the walls like veins. Strange symbols floated in the air just like the ones Alan drew in the dust. And standing in the center was Vorix, tall Eliron, but older than any David had seen. His skin was cracked like stone. His eyes were silver, but faded. His presence heavy. Vorax looked at Alan and bowed his head. "So it is true. The catalyst has awakened." David held the child tighter. "Start talking. Who are you? What is he?" Vorax walked slowly toward them. "Your child is not just hybrid. He is the first echo. The first to carry both lines, the logic of Illyrans and the chaos of humans. He was not meant to be born." David stepped back. "Then why did Sail?" Vorax stopped him. Sail knew the prophecy. She was raised inside the council, trained to find the key, but she broke their laws because she fell in love with you. David's voice cracked. "Did she ever really love me? Or was I just part of her mission?" Vorax looked at him gently. "She was sent to use you. But in the end, she chose to be with you. That's what made her dangerous." Alan stirred. He floated out of David's arms, slowly rising toward the sand. Toward the center of the chamber, the symbols on the walls began to spin. Vorax didn't move. "The moon was once a temple," he said. "Built by the first ones, your son is waking it up." David stared as lights rose from the floor. The chamber hummed. The air grew thick. Ellen's eyes opened, shining brighter than ever. And then, the entire moon shifted. Not physically, something deeper. Like a heartbeat, images filled the air. A city, alien and ancient, floating in the sky. Then, war ships burning, stars collapsing, Illyran leaders arguing, and one voice echoing over it all. "The catalyst will either restore the balance or break the universe." David dropped to his knees. Alan floated back down into his arms. His voice, soft and strange, whispered, "I remember now." David looked at him. "Remember what?" Alan looked up. "Where she is." Vorax turned sharply. "No, you cannot go to her. If you do, they'll trace you. The null will follow." David frowned. "The null? What is that?" Vorax's face darkened. "Not who. What? They were created to erase mistakes in the genetic code. Artificial, ancient, unstoppable. And they believe your child is a mistake." The chamber began to dim. Outside, the ground trembled. Vorax touched the wall. A star map appeared. He pointed to a blinking red zone far beyond normal travel. "Roots. She's there. Trapped between realms. She gave herself to keep him hidden." David looked at the blinking light, then at his son. He whispered, "I won't let her stay there." Vorax grabbed his arm. "If you go, you may bring the shit." "Null with you?" David nodded slowly. "I don't care." Later, aboard a new ship, stolen from Vorax's temple vault, David held Alan close. "We're going to find her," he whispered. Alan didn't answer with words, but stars outside the window began to move, forming a path like they were waiting for him, for them. Because the universe had changed the moment Alan was born, and now it was reacting. The space between stars wasn't empty. It was alive, it whispered. Moved. Shifted like a giant creature breathing in silence. David stared through the ship's window as stars twisted unnaturally. Time felt slower here, stretched, thin. His ship hummed in pain. Even the controls blinked uncertainly. He checked Ellen's pod. The boy was sleeping, but his body glowed again, faint like starlight, trapped in a shell. They were close now. He could feel it. They had reached the edge of known space and stepped into something else. Suddenly, the ship froze. No alarms. No crashes. Just complete stillness. And then, light, not bright, not harsh, but soft, warm. A voice echoed through the ship, not through speakers, but directly into David's mind. You came. David stood, heart racing. Sail. The light grew into a shape, a silhouette. It flickered, unstable, like a memory struggling to hold itself together. It was her, Nasal. She stood in front of him, glowing, her eyes filled with tears that couldn't fall. David stepped forward. Where are you? Her voice was calm but hollow. I'm caught in the weave, between what is and what was, between matter and mind. I had to stay hidden, because if they found me, they'd find him. David clenched his fists. You didn't leave us. You sacrificed yourself. She nodded slowly. I made a deal, my mind for his life. They needed access to the weave to control the catalyst. I gave them what they wanted, but blocked them from seeing him. Every day here costs me something. David stepped closer. I'm going to bring you back. She shook her head. If you open this place, the Knoll will see it. They will know the catalyst is alive. They will come. David turned and looked at the sleeping Alan. He wants to find you. He remembered. Sale smiled gently. He's always remembered, even before birth. He was aware. Alan stirred in the pod. He floated out, his body glowing brighter than ever. His eyes opened and saw her mother. Sale gasped. Her shape flickered more violently now. Alan, child, you shouldn't be here. Alan floated forward, slowly. You're hurt. David stepped forward. There has to be a way. Sale looked at both of them with love in her fading form. There is, but it comes with a price. If he reaches me, he'll connect us and unlock all that he is. The weave will recognize him as the true catalyst. But when that happens, the Knoll will wake. David shook his head. We'll fight them. Sale looked at him with sadness. You don't understand. The Knoll don't fight. They erase entire systems, entire timelines. They exist to fix what they see as a mistake. Alan, is that mistake? Ellen's voice came again, soft but strong. I choose. David turned to him. What do you mean? I choose to remember. I choose to connect. Before David could stop him, Alan reached out. His hand touched the fading image of Sale. And then, everything stopped. The ship vanished. The stars froze. David found himself standing in a white field that had no sky. No ground, just light. And in the center, a pulse. Two figures floated in it, Yale and Sale. He watched as golden lines connected them, reaching far into the dark. Symbols formed huge, ancient, moving like rivers. Then, blackness tore across the light, like ink spilled across paper. A sound followed, deep, endless. Not a voice, a presence. The Knoll had awakened. They didn't speak words, but David heard their judgment like thunder inside his bones. Unclean pattern, illegal bond, evolution outside control. Remove. The light cracked. David screamed. N-O. But it was not his voice that answered. It was Ellen's. I am both. I am neither. I am new. The symbols around him blazed. One by one, the black cracks in the light were sealed. not with force, but with truth. Alan had changed the code, rewritten the pattern. The null paused. Their shape shimmered, flickering, uncertain. They didn't know what to do. They couldn't erase what was no longer broken. They vanished, not destroyed, just overwritten. David dropped to his knees. The field of light faded. He was back in the ship. Alan floated nearby, still glowing but tired. Sael stood in front of them. Whole now, solid, real, she smiled. I didn't think I'd ever hold you again, she said. David stood and took her hand. You're home. Sael touched Ellen's cheek. No, he is home, wherever he chooses to go. Later, as the ship drifted into normal space, David looked at the stars. Everything had changed. Alan slept peacefully now, not glowing, just dreaming. And for the first time, David felt peace too. But he knew the universe was watching, and it wasn't done with them yet. The stars didn't shine the same anymore. They flickered, dimmed, bent like glass under pressures if something enormous was moving just behind the curtain of space. David stood on the deck of the ship, staring out at the growing shadow stretching across the galaxy like a storm forming in silence. He felt it deep in his chest. The Null were returning, but this time, they weren't just coming for Alan. They were coming for Earth. Inside the ship's control chamber, Alan sat in silence. His silver eyes were open, but distant. Like he wasn't here anymore. He was watching something far away. David entered quietly. Is it them? Alan nodded once. They've seen what I did. You changed the code, David said. You protected Sael. You made them pause. I made them think, Alan whispered. Now they fear what else I can do. David knelt beside him. Then we leave. We find a new world. We hide. But Alan didn't move. They don't want me now, he said softly. They want to destroy the world that made me. David felt cold inside. Earth, he whispered. Alan looked up. I can stop them, he said. But not both. David blinked. What do you mean? The chamber dimmed. Sael appeared behind them, quiet but strong. There is a lock on the Null's mind. Was made long ago by the first ones. That lock is tied to the catalysts. Code. David looked from her to Alan, so he can shut them down. Yes, Sael said, but he has two options. Her voice shook now. He can use the lock to shield Earth, block the Null from reaching it. Forever, David felt a wave of hope. But, he asked. Sael's voice grew softer. If he does, he severs himself from the weave. Forever, he can't reach me. He can't. Return to the place that holds my memory, my echo. David went still. The choice hit him like a blade. Save Earth, or bring his mother fully back. Alan stood slowly. I understand now, he said. I was born to be the bridge, but I must become the wall. David's throat tightened. No, you don't have to choose. Alan touched his hand. I do. This was always the end. Mother protected me with her mind. Now I protect the world she loved. The stars outside shifted violently. A black ripple tore through the sky. The Null were close. David turned to Sael. Tell him not to, please. But Sael looked at her son with pride. He's more than we dreamed he could be. Alan walked to the ship's core, the heart of Ellie-run technology, a orb of light and memory. He placed both hands on it. Goodbye. He whispered to his father too. His mother to everything he might have been, suddenly. Beams of gold shot out into space, fast, quiet, invisible to human eyes. The Null stopped. They twitched, shivered. Then froze. Their minds struck the lock. Earth blinked out of their reach forever in the silence that followed. Sael faded. Not in pain, not in fear, but like a candle choosing its own end. Her last words echoed gently. He chose love. He chose you. Then, she was gone. David stood in the silence, tears in his eyes. Alan fell to his knees. Exhausted, the light in his eyes dimmed. He was just a child again. Just a boy. David ran to him and held him tightly. You did it, he whispered. You saved everyone. Alan didn't speak. He just leaned into his father's chest and closed his eyes. Weeks passed. The stars were still now. The ship floated peacefully near Earth's orbit. David looked down at the planet every day, knowing no one would ever understand what had nearly happened and who had stopped it. Alan grew quieter with time. He no longer floated, no longer spoke to machines, but he smiled more, played more, laughed. He had given up something infinite to become something simple, human. One night, as David told Alan a bedtime story, the boy looked up and asked, "Do you think she's watching us?" David smiled. "I think she never stopped." Far away, in the deepest part of the sky, one star pulsed. Not like a star, but like a heartbeat.